Darfur is gripped by human tragedy. Over the past 2 years, 180,000 people have died. Every month, another 15,000 perish. More than 2 million have fled their homes. This Sudanese province is caught in a complex tangle of civil war and dwindling resources. The creeping desert has fanned the flames of conflict between nomads and farmers over land and water. As the dry season ends, it'll soon be time for planting. Farmers come back to check the land they left behind, but they risk attacks from roving militias.
There were militias on horses and camels. Some of them drove four-wheel drives. And above us were the aeroplanes. They all had just one purpose. The ones on the horses took our animals, the others stole our possessions, and the plane above dropped the bombs.
Despite heavy restrictions on international media access, Earth Report films inside Sudan to investigate the environmental routes to Darfur's humanitarian crisis. Sudan has been ravaged by civil war for more than 30 years. In 2004, fighting between North and South ended. In April 2005, the international community pledged over $4 billion in reconstruction aid for the South. But the western province of Darfur is still a war zone. Behind the conflict is a long history of drought and desertification.
You're talking an area as big as France, broadly divided into thirds, because the northern third is essentially the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, and it's the desertification there that's caused some of the current problems. The two major groups are the subsistence farmers, agriculturalists, and nomadic or semi-nomadic pastoralists, and there wasn't historically too much direct conflict for the land. Indeed, they would work together. For instance, after a crop was harvested by the subsistence farmers, the nomadic peoples would bring their cattle or camels to eat the crop residues, but also to fertilise the soil. So it worked well as a coexistence before the pressure on the land became great, which is what's been happening over the last generation.
A key cause is a dramatic increase in human and animal populations over the past century. Climate change and uncontrolled cutting of trees destroyed Darfur's ecology. Every year, the desert border moves another 5 kilometres south. Fertile land is now a precious commodity. The Sudanese government says the crisis is an accumulation of tribal disputes over land and water.
Sometimes there are small conflicts which have been solved by the tribe leaders. But now the problem has been complicated. A lot of droughts, a lot of immigrants from north to south. The farmers have less land. They closed the pathways, so the conflicts become greater now. But to my thinking, it is a land use management problem.
First of all, the present conflict which you hear about is not over natural resources. If anybody tells you that this is a conflict over natural resources, I think he is ignorant of the problem. This is not the case. Our normal problem over natural resources is still there, and it will remain as long as the production systems remain traditional, like traditional farming, traditional herding. Unless we make development to change our production systems, the conflict will always be there.
So how are tribal conflicts linked to the current crisis? For one thing, given recent violence, will farmers allow nomads to cross their land?
The question is if they are from Darfur or not. Whoever is from Darfur and comes here, if he does not have any land, we have mercy for him as a fellow Muslims. And if we have land to share, we will share this with him right away.
So the ecological routes to the crisis are not as clear-cut as the Sudanese government says. To find out more, we've come to El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur. In April 2003, rebels of the Sudanese Liberation Army, the SLA, launched a surprise attack on the town. They accused the government of ethnic cleansing by pro-government militias who'd burned down villages. The Sudanese government vowed to crush the rebellion with a scorched earth policy.
You heard about government militia. That means this militia, it has got their own interest, and the government has got its own interest.
Some nomadic Arab tribesmen joined the government to fight the SLA.
To my view, those who responded, I know they managed, or they combined. Originally, they have got no land. They are pressurized by lack of natural resources for their animals. So their interest is to get land, to get opportunity for their animals to graze. So what they should do is to drive the others from their land, and they occupied. But not they came actually to fight against SLA. This crisis, when it started with 2003, there is a competition over natural resources, yes. But it had been fueled.
Thousands of refugees poured into towns like El Fasher. The nearest refugee camp, Abu Shuk, was built for 40,000 people. It now holds more than twice that amount. There are urgent shortages of drinking water, fuel and food. Most refugees are farmers, and Darfur's agriculture has been devastated, with half the land left unplanted, and the rain stayed away again.
We have 5 consecutive drought for the last 5 years. So the amount of rain is in declining trend, actually. Last year, maybe the worst year, that we received about 110 millimeter of rain per annum, which has not happened during the last 5 decades.
The clouds and strong winds are sure signs of imminent rain. Seeds must be planted soon if there's to be food next year. Mohammed Sadiq from the Arabic Sayadiyya tribe works with an international NGO called Practical Action. Over the past 20 years, he's helped fellow Darfurians regardless of their ethnic or tribal background. He aims to combat the encroaching desert by making local farmers more efficient food producers. Since the 80s, Mohammed has worked with blacksmiths from the African Zahawa tribe. They're particularly skilled in making agricultural tools, crucial for preparing the land.
And this is also hose for planting millet. And this different big axe, which have very good quality. And you can see the mark here. It's very high quality wood. So farmer, they used to come here and then select type according to the soil characteristics.
The Zahawa blacksmiths are from the far north of Darfur, but droughts forced them to move south. They sold household tools to farmers and nomads alike, but the recent violence forced them to move yet again. They've come to El Fasher to find a safe place to live and work. With the help of Mohammed Sadiq, the town council has found space for them in the central market. Today he drops by to give them identity cards that show they work for an international NGO. Now they're less likely to be harassed by militias or the authorities.
Everyone who will know them when traveling during the checkpoint, so they are blacksmiths and they are working in El Fasher here, so they permit them to come and to go.
We make agricultural tools here. It is all quality handicraft work.
The blacksmiths have been very busy ahead of the planting season, but will they manage to deliver the tools in time? The winds are picking up and international agencies are getting ready to distribute seeds to rural areas. But there's still militia violence, and farmers won't return unless their safety is guaranteed. Despite the dangers, Sadiq sets off with a local farmer to see if rebel-controlled areas are safe for farmers to come back and start planting. Our Earth Report crew tags along. We soon reach the checkpoint between government-controlled territory and rebel areas. But first, Sadiq wants to show us something, the Abu Shouk refugee camp. He's especially interested in the surrounding land. To survive, women and children in the camps have no choice but to scour the dry valleys for firewood. They risk attacks by bandits or militia. They even go as far as uprooting the trees. Since the population exploded in the 70s, this area around the town has seen widespread tree destruction. The recent flood of refugees has only made matters worse.
So this is a preferable area for picnic, which is full of trees. Now all trees have been chopped. And you can see the landscape here, actually. You can see some heaps of sand. That is the sign of uprooting. Now, these all trees have been chopped down. That is definitely will increase sand creeping towards the south, maybe 10 kilometers per year. When there is sand creeping, definitely that will cover the fertile soil, and so that will decrease the production. How many trees now have been chopped here? 1, 2, 3, oh, it is many.
One solution to this environmental destruction is to reduce the use of wood for cooking and building houses. An average Sudanese family uses the equivalent of 355 trees a year. But poor people have no other choice.
Poverty and conservation are contradictory. Definitely. Don't ask poor person to look after the environment or to preserve the environment. For example, that a woman is in Abshok, she's hungry, her children are hungry, and she has got some food, she has to cook it. Where she's going to get fire? What is the alternative for her?
Traditionally, Sudanese women use a stove of 3 stones to cook, but this takes a lot of firewood. So the blacksmiths' wives, who are first-class potters, help to develop a new stove that uses much less fuel. Now they're training women in the Abu Shouk refugee camp how to build it.
All Sudanese people benefit from the stove. It reduces the cost of cooking, it reduces the amount of food used, and it reduces the smoke in the kitchen.
The new fuel-efficient stoves should cut firewood consumption by up to 60%. It also means women will spend less time scavenging for wood in the dangerous valleys around the camp. But the best solution would be a different energy source altogether.
I think there's a need to supplement or to have something else, another source of power. In Al-Fashir, for example, why not use gas? Why not? And that is the responsibility of the government. Now Sudan is actually producing oil and has got gas. Today in Khartoum, 1 cylinder of gas is 600 dinars. But in Al-Fashir today, we'll get it 3,000 dinars. If the government, for example, is keen to stop this deterioration and overpressure of the natural resource, why not they start to reduce the consumption of the firewood and charcoal? So unless there's an investment, definitely, deterioration of the natural resource will not stop.
Things would improve dramatically for the town if people went back to their homes, but that's not happening. Indeed, many refugees are building houses in the camps, and the prospect of them returning is close to nil. This means the fields won't be planted and food shortages will escalate.
I don't think they are going, most of them, they are going back to their home. But I hope that if the security situation improves, maybe majority, 50-60%, maybe they will go back to their villages.
After the refugee camp, we're back on the road. We've crossed the Sudanese military checkpoint and are in no man's land. Dangerous conditions on the road have paralysed food transport. With prices rocketing, people forage for wild food and sell it in local markets. Here they're selling wild desert dates. We drive deeper into rebel territory, where roads are almost non-existent.
No road at all. But we know where the villages. And so I'm just going to cross the sand dunes toward our villages.
Poor infrastructure is one of Darfur's biggest problems. This is supposed to be the main road. SLA rebels told us this is why they fight. They demand roads and development funds from the central government in Khartoum.
We want peace for Darfur and we want it to progress and develop like the rest. Did you not see Khartoum? Compare it to the rest of the provinces of Sudan and Darfur. There is no electricity, there is no water, there is no health service, there is no education, there is no life.
After a while, we arrive. Mohammed Sadiq hasn't been back here in more than a month. It looks deserted, but then we notice some people, a group of blacksmiths who've stayed on.
كيف؟ كويسين؟ تمامين؟ الحمد لله. ازيكم؟ كيف؟ كويسين؟ طيبين؟ الحمد لله. كيف؟
The blacksmiths have had a hard time.
إذا كان الشجر خابات كثيرة هسه خابات ما في. السبب والله بيكون
There were a lot of trees here. Now there is no tree left because the rains dried up. We don't know why that happened. Now we only have the war problems. We are tired of it. We sit and wait. We don't know what else can we do.
They are busy making a plough designed for donkeys. It makes infiltration of rainwater easier and boosts crop production.
This plough can cultivate about ½ acre per day. We have data collected that increase the production by 50%. You can see plough everywhere in northern Darfur. And this society actually produces more than 1,000 ploughs.
But ploughs alone can't solve Darfur's crisis. As long as there's war, the ploughs can't reach the farmers. Unless peace comes between the three warring parties, the Sudanese Liberation Army, GEM and the government, the suffering will go on.
For insecurity, unless it is a negotiation going on between the two parties, conflicted parties, SLA, GM and Sudan government, I don't think there will be any solution on the ground. So definitely hoping that there will be a peace. And then every farmer, he will feel secure in his area and secure to move from his area to other part of the state. So our all hopes that people in this conflicted party to sit and to agree on peace. And that is will solve greatest Darfur problem.
On his way back, Sadiq checks out the community's seed store. Bandits looted it a few months ago, but the villagers managed to keep some of their seeds safe. They might be amongst the few to grow food for next season. The UN estimates up to 3 million people will urgently need food aid. It's nearly sundown, and for safety's sake, we need to go back. On our way, we stumble on something that brings hope to both Mohammed Sadiq and his farmer friend. A crescent-shaped terrace prepared with a donkey plough seems to have a harvest. It's been 7 months since the last rains.
The soil here characteristic have high water retention capacity. And you can see the tomato. Still after 7 months, the tomato can give a production. This quality is a local varieties. Tomato, which is very tasty and fleshy. Actually, farmer planted this as a cash crops. And now the box of tomato, which is about 10 kilo in a fashion market. 2 boxes you can purchase 1 sack of millet, which can keep the family for 1 month. And they receive only 1 good rain during the whole rainy season. And this is something which is very surprising for me and surprising for other people which visit the area. I am very happy to keep our farmers settled in their area with very small techniques, terrace techniques and plow techniques. You can compare among all this drought area, and you can see the sand dunes, and still you have a production. Very simple techniques, and you can have a production. A terrace techniques only. This okra already have been harvested. Still there is a production.
It shows that with new production techniques, land that looks like desert could yield decent harvests.
We are very proud by this farmer to promote these techniques in the area, and to keep them settled up to now, it is something good.
According to a German university study, Darfur's natural resources could provide for all its 5 million people using new farming methods. But first it needs proper infrastructure. Most of all, Darfur needs peace, so people can return home, grow their crops and graze their animals.
We pray that God gives security and peace, then there will be rains and goodness.
Back in El Fasher, cash crops like tomatoes and okra are on sale. Although an average person can't afford the prices, it means some farmers manage to survive. After our crew left, we were told the rains arrived at the end of May. Aid agencies began distributing seeds. In the camps, there are songs of hope. Some farmers will be able to plant for next season, and maybe one day they'll return with their families. When peace does come, Darfur might go back to what it was long before, a rich multicultural province where farmers and nomads, both Arabic and African, work together to live with the harsh desert climate.